Namaste, Swamiji.
Namaste.
Swamiji, could you tell us about your journey with Osho, how you met him and how was your life with him?
Okay. My journey started with him when I was a self-sufficient farmer and an artist back in the late 70s. And out of the blue, a book arrives from Pune, from one of my oldest best friends. And reading one paragraph in the early morning as I'm milking the cow, my wife and I were in tears because that one paragraph was saying so much of what we were yearning for. We were living in paradise. This farm was a beautiful place high up in the hills opposite the Welsh border, looking at the Welsh mountains and the Brecon Beacons, overlooking the River Wye. I mean, it was a paradise place, and we were self-sufficient, well, to some extent self-sufficient. And everything was perfect, except there was something missing. And we had an intimation that it was something to do with the inner, the spirit, for want of a better word, the soul. I don't know these words really, I don't know how to use them. And we tried a brief flirtation with Christianity, and that had ended very abruptly, actually just a few days before the book arrived. And with that book arrived the clear knowledge that actually we had to meet that guy. And in fact, when I said we have to meet this man, my knees started shaking because I was facing something way bigger than myself, way bigger. And it was that awe. And within a few days, £1,000 had arrived. Somebody to look after the farm had volunteered. A holiday we'd possibly hoped for had been cancelled. Suddenly the gates were wide open. And in December of 1977, I arrived with my wife and three kids, two sons and a stepson. And it was achingly beautiful to walk in after 24 hours of travelling into that gateless gate and see all these people dressed in orange with long hair, long beards, the men, just moving with such ease, such beauty, such measured rhythms. And I fell in love with the place. 3 days later, sitting in the back of Discourse, and Osho's this tiny little figure at the front. There was something exquisite about his voice in that pin drop silence of, I don't know, there were 500 people there. And then after the Discourse, he's back in his car. It was a Mercedes in those days. And he's driving round, and so all we at the back had to do was swivel round. And that smile killed me. That smile was the coup de grace, what killed me. And I took sannyas that night, having spent the whole morning in tears, just a huddle on the floor of the Buddha Hall in tears. And what it was the recognition that he knew. You know, like, I had loved wonderful teachers when I was at art school, and they were people of great depth and perceptivity. But the feeling with Bhagwan, with Osho, was that he was it. He was the truth. He was the beauty that he was talking about. He was the love. He was the compassion. He was the truth.
So that day you took sannyas. So how did the journey continue after that? Did you come back to England or did you stay back in the commune?
So that was towards the end of 1977, and once I'd had that meeting with Osho, once I had experienced that fragrance of his being and the beauty of what was surrounding him, I knew that had to be my life. So my wife and I went back to England, sold the farm, sold the beautiful sheepdog, the sheep, the beautiful tea set, said goodbye to our friends and came to India and became members of the commune. And it was extraordinary because I remember arriving back, going into the office where Laxmi and Arup and whoever else was there. On Lakshmi's desk in front of her was a magazine called Harper's Bazaar, which was a sort of glossy magazine, which a few months earlier had done an article on us, in a series of people who'd moved out of the city, out of stress, into the country, into the rural life. And there was pictures in front of Lakshmi, and that was a wonderful reception she gave us. And then very quickly we just settled into the commune life. My kids went to the commune school, and I worked first of all in the weaving, and then later in the garden, growing vegetables for him. That was from my farming experience. And what was key really in the day were those morning discourse. At 7 o'clock you'd wake up, we'd shower, and then we're walking from all through Pune. You saw these figures converging on the ashram in this early morning mist, in this silence, and gathering in the Buddha hall and sitting in that silence. And then the crunch of gravel as the tires of his car come in that silence, and the distant trains hooting, and the parrots, and the calls of the rickshaw drivers outside. In that silence he comes in, and he was making us human beings. That's what his job is. I don't know how to say it, but for 40 years he has fed me. He has nourished my body, mind, soul, heart, being, so that I'm feeling more and more a human being. And it's this humanity that is missing in our planet, and that's why I am so keen to share this vision, this revolution that Osho is. Osho is a revolution, and it's a revolution that we, humanity, need to make if we're to save this beautiful planet. I've got 16 grandchildren. I want them to live in as beautiful a place as I've had, if not more beautiful. And the only way that can happen, in my understanding, is that we transform ourselves. We become this truth that Osho is, that Osho's pointing to, that Osho's sharing, this alive beingness. And the fast track is meditation. And that's really the biggest gift Osho has given humanity, is these meditations, dynamic, Kundalini, Nada Brahma, and particularly things like the mystic rose. I don't know if people know what mystic rose is, but basically it's 3 hours a day laughing, 3 hours a day crying, for a week, 3 hours a day, and then 3 hours a day sitting silently for a week. And it's the most transformative experience I ever had. No, I can't say that. It's one of the key transformative experiences. Perhaps one of the strongest is just meeting him eye to eye, and he's just beaming love, intelligence, I don't know, wisdom, compassion.
So you say that Osho, being with Osho, transformed you. Could you say more about it? How has he changed you as a person? Do you see a huge difference between what you were before meeting Osho and what you are now after 40 years with him?
Okay, yeah, it's been 40 years since I met Osho. I was just on 40 and I've just passed 80. And being with him is a process. It's not a static or abrupt change. It's a process. It's an ongoing process of transformation. And the transformation happens from the very beginning, from the very first day. You recognize that here's someone who knows, someone who is sharing, who is in his lovingness, sharing this incredible wealth. What I have come to understand is that there's, just as there's this infinity upwards, there's infinity inwards, downwards. Physicists recognize this, and it's time that psychologists recognized it. So what's been going on for me is that I was, like every normal person, I was brought up to be this, male, English, clever, not clever, beautiful, not beautiful, efficient, not efficient. I had all this sort of labeling, a suit of armor around me. And I think part of the recognition of being a painter is to break out of that armor. But the conditioning that we receive is so strong that by ourselves we can't break out of it, or it's very, very rare that one can break out of it. I mean, very rare. So a master is such a blessing, such a gift. And someone like Osho, his vitality goes on for centuries. And so it doesn't matter that you don't meet him in the body, because you just get on the train, and you're going to the destination anyway. It doesn't matter whether you get on at the beginning or the middle or near the end. So for me, the transformation has been away from this rigid, or even semi-rigid, or even reactionary individual. I went through all the left-wing stuff, and that didn't work. I tried the religious stuff, and that didn't work. Because they are all working within that suit of armor, within that conditioning. With a master, you get to actually take off this old armor. I love the phrase that he uses. The master gives you something that you already have, and he takes from you what you don't have. And he took from me what wasn't mine, that conditioning from a British middle class, upper middle class.
You've now come to Netherlands in this beautiful commune called Osho Mevlana. Could you tell us about your experience of Osho Mevlana? How was it staying here? And what does it mean to be in a commune?
I've arrived in Osho Mevlana in Amsterdam without expectations, but I am so knocked out by the beauty of this place. It's people that the love that's here is extraordinary. The love and acceptance, and it's because of Osho. Actually, it's because I love this person, I love this person, I love this person. Because they love Osho. They're in this web. Actually, we call it a Buddha field. It's a Buddha field. And love is one of the ingredients of a Buddha field. Of course, there are all these challenges, the conflict of egos. They're going to be there all the time until we're all free of ego. And that's a bit further down the line. But nevertheless, the prevailing climate is acceptance, love, and inquiry. That people here are looking into who they are. They are looking for self, their true self, which is what I'm talking about from the very beginning, Osho's message to humanity. Who are we, and how can we be the true selves, which, once we've found, largely solve the problems of humanity that we're creating for our poor planet. With this meditation, with this self-inquiry, comes understanding, and it comes creativity, new solutions.
We heard about your book, The Only Life.
Huh.
Could you tell us about the book and what the book is all about?
Recently, in the last 2 or 3 years, I've been working on a book. I was invited by Swami Atul of Osho World, Osho Dham in Delhi, to write the life of Laxmi. Laxmi was this amazing, beautiful first disciple, first secretary of Osho. She was a channel. She was a flute through which the master played. She was his arms, his legs, his feet, his voice. She was an inspiration to many, many, many of us. She died 4 years after Osho left the body in 94. But it was my privilege, really, to write, to explore her life and follow the transformation of her life. And she got hit. She was, her position as Osho's secretary was usurped by Sheila, the one who caused such chaos and crisis in Rajneeshpuram in Oregon, and about which that film, Wild Country, has just been made, very partial because it took 0.01% of what was going on and made it a whole big drama. But some people see through that. Many, many, many people have seen the beauty of what was going on. 15,000 people building a city, living in love, in harmony, without locks, without police, without rules, with love, with creativity, with intelligence. I mean, it was an extraordinary experiment and a blueprint, actually, for any city. So Laxmi was ousted and outlawed by Sheila, her successor, and went through dark valleys, really dark, really dark. She who'd been the queen was now out. She was nobody. And that took terrific trust in her master. That took terrific love and dedication. And that being what's the word? Ejected, being rejected by the commune was a real test of her devotion, her trust in her master. And she passed that test. Her trust in the work of the master. And the master gives it. That's what he has to do. The master strokes and he hits. And he uses a subtle combination of that to get us to find ourselves. Laxmi went through that whole process. She was gold in the melting pot of Osho's crucible. And in my understanding, she came through. I can't tell exactly, but for me. So the book was published last December, just recently, and it's now available on Amazon and through the Osho World website. So thank you for this.
Thank you so
I
much.
feel very honoured.